Here again, fans, at the Say What You Like podcast for Championship Week. We're breaking down the divisional round and previewing the conference championship games. Here with my partner, Philip Enriquez. Say hi.
Hello.
And so let's get into the divisional round. And the first game we want to talk about is like when you just want to get something over with. And we're going to do that with Houston traveling to New England because nobody thought Houston was going to win. And Houston didn't win. So let's get this taken care of. Your thoughts?
Patriots were favored by 16 points. 16 points. And they covered with a score of 34-16. New England takes the victory. Brock Osweiler was Brock Osweiler. You know, I don't know how this guy can call himself an NFL starting caliber quarterback. The fact that he got paid, it was a sham, and I feel like this divisional game was a sham. There were so many better teams that got defeated last week that weren't playing this week, and this team got to play. It was a shame.
Well, they lucked out because they ran into, no Derek Carr, Raiders. You know, they played a team without a quarterback, and that's how they got in. You look at even in their own division, playing, Marcus Mariota getting hurt, Andrew Luck getting hurt for some of the time. But let's just look at Brock Osweiler's stat line. He was 23 of 40 for 198 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. They didn't run the ball that much better, although Lamar Miller had a pretty good game, 73 yards on 19 carries. And what's interesting is they had a shot. That's what blows my mind. If you were just to watch if someone who didn't know about football just watched the first 3 quarters, they would have thought that's an evenly game.
You wouldn't suspect they were playing the number 1 seed, best team, best record in the league.
Exactly. I mean, they held Brady to under 50% completions. They picked him off twice, but it was special teams, Deion Lewis with his touchdown, And what was great is getting to see something you didn't expect, and that was Houston getting a Brady. I mean, they sacked him twice with Merciless and Cushing. Clowney was forcing him, making erratic passes. But at the end of the day, even though the defense held, they just didn't have a quarterback that could capitalize on the early mistakes.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to get Brady, if you're going to pick him off, if you're going to sack him, if you're going to force them to punt, you need to, on offense, you need to be able to turn around and score touchdowns. Because as soon as Brady figures it out, as soon as Belichick figures it out, they're going to make you pay. And as soon as they figured it out and they figured out Houston, they made them pay. And Houston doesn't have a quarterback that can even get field goals, let alone touchdowns.
No, they were obviously their offense was so inept they weren't able to capitalize, and that's the story of the game. Now let's move on to the next game. The Falcons dismantle the Seattle Seahawks 36-20.
Oh yeah, as a 49er fan, I loved watching. That was like a fever dream right there. Russell Wilson 2 picks, but he had 49 yards rushing. But it was Matt Ryan, 26-37, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns. He looked so efficient. I mean, you figure it was such a great game to watch because you got to watch an offense that's talented, a quarterback that's efficient, and an offensive coordinator who knew what to do and how to expose a defense. I mean, they looked unstoppable at times.
Yeah. They did. And you know what? I was very impressed the way they were able to take advantage of the Seattle defense. And then word pops out that Richard Sherman was playing with a bad MCL. Is that what came out today?
Yeah.
I mean, then they're missing Earl Thomas. Cam Chancellor's been missing a few games throughout the season. He's never been 100% right. You're starting to see that this, formerly legendary Legion of Boom is starting to fall apart. They're getting up there in age, and they're not what they're used to. And Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, they just took advantage.
Yeah, I mean, those two combined for 102 yards and 25 carries. And on top of that, Devontae Freeman also had 4 receptions for 80 yards as a running back.
Yeah.
I mean, you can split them out wide. And it was interesting because you figure Atlanta won the coin toss, let Seattle have the ball. Seattle goes down the field on a 14-play, 89-yard drive, got a touchdown. Atlanta turned on answers with their own 13-yard, 70-yard play for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then it was a little back and forth, and all of a sudden it was the safety.
Yeah.
They got pinned back.
The game
they got
around.
Pinned back. Their right guard steps on Russell Wilson's foot, falls back. They give the ball. I
enjoyed that play.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I did. I loved it.
And then they get Atlanta gets the ball, gets a field goal, and then it's touchdown. And I think that like you said, you look at Seattle, their defense isn't what it used to be. Their offensive line, they're reaping what they sow. They're finally coming back of not paying attention to the offensive line.
Yeah.
And it's hurting them. It's Russell Wilson. They couldn't run the ball efficiently. And I think what you finally saw was Pete Carroll manifesting his USC self.
Yeah.
When he was with USC, They came from nowhere. They won a national championship. They got back. They lost to Vince Young. And he's doing it again. And you're seeing the same decline that happened at USC happened in Seattle.
And, I think the biggest part of that decline is the fact that the offense is entirely on Russell Wilson's shoulders now, where they really miss Marshawn Lynch. They miss beast mode because he was able to take that load of the offense and carry it when it needed to be. And then Wilson just had to step up and make those plays. But now they're depending on him from beginning to end of every game. And without an offensive line, we're seeing that, quite frankly, he's probably incapable of doing that throughout an entire season and postseason.
That's true. So I'll take the next one. Let's move on to the unofficial Sunday night game because it got moved for the Storm.
Right. Was
Pittsburgh visiting Kansas City and walking out with an 18-16 score. Stats of the game: Ben Roethlisberger 20-31, 224 yards, no touchdown and a pick. Le'Veon Bell 170 yards on 30 carries.
He's been beasting.
They gave him the ball. Alex Smith finished with 20-34 for 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Typical Alex Smith game. And I think the stat that'll let you know the truth of what happened is Kansas City rushed only for 53 yards and 11 carries.
Yeah, I think that's what hurt them. But I just feel really, really bad for Kansas City because this defense definitely was up to the challenge in the playoffs. Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, arguably that is the best trio. That's the new triplets in the NFL. I mean, I would say they're the top combination in the NFL offensively.
Yeah.
They got 2 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line. They got a good offensive line. And they were able to – the Kansas City defense was able to stop the Pittsburgh Steelers from scoring a touchdown. And they still lost this game. I mean, why is that? What do you think?
I think it falls on Kansas City's offense. I think they sputtered. They were inconsistent. I mean, and Pittsburgh just knew how to put enough pressure on them to kind of hold them down. And the knock on Alex Smith is always he's not going to throw deep. And you saw Dallas lose to – you've seen Pittsburgh lose to Dallas.
Right.
Why? Because Dak went deep. You know, when Tom Brady beats them, it's because you go deep. Because you can go deep and beat their corners. But when you don't have a quarterback that can go deep sideline to sideline,
challenge them,
and you're just forced to play inside, you can't play receivers on those linebackers. Ryan Shazier, Bud Dupree, James Harrison, that defensive line. If you try to play within 8 to 10 yards and try to win going down the field like that, they're going to eat you alive.
And that's what Kansas City does. You know, that's Alex Smith's comfort blanket is Travis Kelce and those routes in the middle. He can get deep down the field, but if he's your biggest, and then he dropped them. But you can't expect a big guy like that to consistently beat a defense down the field.
No.
You need your wide receivers to step up. You need your quarterback to just say, hey, you know what? I got the balls to make this play. Let's go win the game. And Alex Smith, we always give him props because he doesn't lose the games. But here goes to a perfect example of how he's unable to win a game, and it hurt them.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh was able to move the ball. I mean, they could get down the field, but then they get stuck. And Pittsburgh's an aggressive offense. They want touchdowns. Yeah. You know, they want to go down the field. They want touchdowns. They want Antonio Brown. They want Lev Bell to get in the end zone. And time again, Kansas City held firm. They couldn't get enough pressure. I think you need to turn Ben over a couple times to really kind of shake them up. You want to get them, and it's similar to Dallas where you want to get them out of running the ball. And I think it's even easier to get Pittsburgh because they are so talented to trick them into saying, "No, we're not going to give it to Le'Veon Bell. But they stuck to it. And I mean, with I think 8 minutes left, they went down the field on a 77-yard play. They got the touchdown. They went for 2 to tie the game at 18 all. They connect, but then they get the holding call. And your thoughts on that?
I think that was utter BS call. I think that when it's the end of the game and the game's on the line and your playoff lives are on the line and everything you've sweated for since training camp and it's all on the line on this one play, that you shove the whistle up your ass. Unless it's a blatant hold, which I personally don't think it was that blatant.
I mean, he kind of looked like he hit the rock bottom on him. I'm not going to lie. They busted out the doomsday device. They went pro wrestling moves on James Harrison. I mean, it's hard because James Harrison is a smaller defensive lineman or outside linebacker. Right. And he looks like he's going to fall no matter what. And you have a taller guy that's just holding him.
He was just helping him. Yeah. He didn't want him to get hurt. And that's what happened, you know. I mean, the ref saw it and called it. And
I agree with you on certain calls, but I just feel like that was, if you go by the letter of law, that was too blatant. And then you look at the fact that you gave them the ball, and Pittsburgh wanted to run the clock out.
Yeah.
You know, and you had was it 3rd and 8? They ran it twice. You had a chance.
Yeah.
I truly believe that if they stopped Pittsburgh, they would have won that game. They would have went down the field, kicked a game-winning field goal, but they weren't able to. And you just left Ben too much. It was indicative. You left Ben too much time.
And that's why they say never leave the games in the hands of the referees, especially a game like that. So on to our last game. And I'd like to switch this up just a bit. I actually prepared a little something. I'd like to thank all the followers, fans, and even you haters that are in attendance here at the Say What You Like Championship Week podcast, who are here for the eulogy of the 2016 Dallas Cowboys. Today on this show, we mourn the loss of the 2016 Dallas Cowboys season, and I feel the need to just share a few words about America's favorite team. On January 15th, 2017, we were all witness to how that evil, rat bastard, cheese-headed villain from Green Bay named Aaron Rodgers just strutted in to AT&T Stadium, and for 3 whole hours he torched and tortured not only the Dallas Cowboys defense, but our entire fan base, and it resulted in the successful murder of the 2016 Dallas Cowboys season. A sorrowful end to a great and exciting season, to which us as Cowboys fans were and continue to be proud of. But let us remember how this team, who was born out of adversities such as coming off a 4-12 campaign, but fought and grew into a 13-3 team who captured the NFC East division title. Yes, we all watched proudly as our young team grew into winners before our very eyes throughout their time with us this year. But a death as sudden as this was, it just left us all completely unprepared for the loss. As dreams and visions of a Super Bowl danced through our heads this season, they were suddenly taken from us. Yet, the saddest part of this story may be that not only was this the end of the 2016 season of the Dallas Cowboys, but also the likely end of one of the most underappreciated eras in NFL history, the Tony Romo era. But as we say goodbye to number 9, let us remember that although it's the end of one era, let's rejoice for the beginning of this new era, the Dak Prescott era. Let these words, Cowboys Nation, be a reminder to all of us that today we need to move on from this loss, as we shall return along with hopefully a pass rusher in that draft in April and actually finish this next fight.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I prepared that myself today on my break.
I mean, I had popcorn and smiled, but now on a personal note, being a Niners fan, there wasn't much fun, but watching Seattle and Dallas go down in the same weekend was nice. It was solid.
Terrible.
It was awesome. I mean, cartwheeled backwards. It was nice to see. It was such an amazing game, but by no means was that. I mean, I don't care if you weren't a Dallas fan or a Green Bay. That was just an intense game. That really, really was. I mean,
by far the best game in this year's playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that's up there with best game of the year.
Yeah.
And it might be the best game of the year.
So I'd say so.
You know, I mean, 31-34. Aaron Rodgers finishes 28 of 43 for 356 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. They only rushed for 71 yards on 15 carries between Montgomery and Ripkowski. I mean, and Dak had a great game. Dak had 3 TDs, 302 yards on 24 completions of 38 attempts. Zeke Elliott, which we'll probably get into in a little bit, 125 carries on 125 yards on 22 carries, averaged 5.8 yards per attempt. It means if you gave it to him twice, he got you a first down.
Yep.
The time possession, which is always talked about with Dallas. I mean, it was only a minute difference. I forget which one. I didn't really look at it, but I think what sticks out is Dallas coming out slow, which I think could be attributed to a young team with the week off against Aaron Rodgers.
I think it was a little bit more than a week off, to be fair.
Yeah, I get what you mean. They really didn't play for much.
They didn't play anybody past the half or even the quarter in the season finale. You have the bye week. And the Detroit game, they played it, but it wasn't playoff football. I mean, it was for nothing.
I think they checked out after that game, and that's
Yeah.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Almost 21 days.
And it showed because they didn't show up for the first quarter.
Yeah, they look, and then Aaron Rodgers has been playing playoff ball for a couple weeks now, trying to get his team in, and he looks sharp. And I think they tried what both you and I thought, which was Dallas was gonna play 3-man, play back, but Aaron Rodgers this time he just converted. I mean, you remember those games? The difference was in the game you guys beat them. You went up into Green Bay and beat the Packers. You held them to field goals. This time you couldn't do that. Remember, it was field goal.
Yeah.
You got one, then field goal from. It didn't happen this time. They converted those, and I mean, it could have gotten away from you guys. 21-3. I love seeing the meme of the guy sweating profusely, and it's Cowboy fans remembering all the shit they talked this year. When it's 21-3, that's nerve wracking. But I mean, you'll recap what Dak did right after that.
When I was watching the game and it hit 21-3, I said, "This is the perfect storm." I mean, this is the exact situation that all the haters wanted to see us in, because they knew this is the one that we hadn't proven if we could get over that hump.
Yes, we did.
And and the fact is, I was very proud. I mean, the one positive that I can take is the way that Dallas roared back, and it kind of reminds me of that 1994 NFC Championship game where we're down 21-0 in no time at all. It wasn't even the end of the first quarter, I don't believe. And they came back to challenge, even though they didn't win the game. But, you were proud of the effort. And, I feel the same after this game as a fan. Now, I started to get hope once Dak threw those 3 straight completions to Dez Bryant, and they ended up with the touchdown. Once I seen that before the half, I knew this team had woken up. And I knew that Green Bay was going to deal with the Cowboys offense for that second half, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, you watched them kind of, and it was interesting when they went down 21-3. I think this is where Dak is different than Romo, and it's not a knock on Romo. It's more of just a praise of Dak. Is that they panned to the team, to Cole Beasley, to Dez Bryant, and a couple other offensive players, and they just look shell shocked. I mean, they look wide eyed, like, oh my God, what just happened? And that could have easily been a rout. Green Bay could have easily turned on and routed them. And Dak just said, he calmed down and he said, all right, well, I'm going to go down the field. And I mean, it was like boom, 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 all to Dez. They were only covering him with one guy. He went down the field, bang, touchdown. I mean, Dez ended up with, I think,
Dez had his best
9 receptions
of
for
the season.
9 receptions for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That was the best game of the season.
Yeah.
That is the best I've seen Dez look since 2014. And I admit, I've been rough on Dez all year long. I've been rough on Dez the year before. I know he's coming off a foot injury, this and that. He has his excuses, but I felt like for the money he makes and the spectacle that he makes, on the sidelines, that he needs to start showing up. And you know what? In the biggest game of the year, he did. So I'm off his back for at least the offseason.
I mean, this was a fight. I mean, that second half was just a toe-to-toe, body blow, headshot fight.
Heavyweight.
Yeah. I mean,
Ollie Frazier.
It really was. And it's
the
just
Thrilla in Manila.
It's just they have Aaron Rodgers. And to be honest, I mean, I have a formula. If the team is better, you pick the better team. Even if the quarterback on the other side is better. You look at Super Bowls. Denver versus Seattle a few years ago. Oh, they have Peyton Manning. He's amazing. But if you look at it, Seattle had the better team.
Right.
Look at the Denver when they won. Oh, Cam Newton, that's the greatest thing we've ever seen. But Denver had the better team. This defies all logic, because what we said when we made our predictions still stands true, and I think we both agree, is Dallas is still the better team.
Still feel that way. Before and after.
Yeah. But, I mean, we'll use your Rancor analogy of the beast, and that comes from Star Wars, and the one that kills the beast is Luke Skywalker, and I think the Packers have him in number 12, because what he's able to do is, I mean, it's amazing. You look at that last drive. Okay, he's done it before, but after he gets the sack, when he gets sacked, okay, you think, okay, it's going overtime.
Yeah, in the fourth. So this is, okay, when they're tied up, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they're tied up. Dak Prescott did an amazing job leading the back time and time again. They tie it up. Before that, they get the 2-point conversion on the quarterback draw.
Yes.
And they exchange field goals. So it's 31-31. And, all right, 38 seconds left.
And before you move on from the field goals, the field goal that was kicked by the Dallas Cowboys during the game, I disagreed with the spike. And then, people on the national media and television are saying, well, they should have called the timeout. I'm not saying they should have called the timeout because I'm a believer that you always keep one timeout in your back pocket. That way you can throw it to any place on the field and you don't have to, worry about completing only a sideline throw. You don't want to lose the game on a stupid mental error like that. Game management is a big part of a game like this where it's this close. No. So I didn't want to give the timeout, but I felt like this. I've seen Aaron Rodgers time and time again win the game with little to no time on the clock. Whether it's a Hail Mary, he can do it from the other 30 and win the game.
Yeah.
So I wasn't comfortable with that, but they clocked it. It was a waste of a down, and then the next thing you know, I think it was Nick Perry that batted it right down. From the Dak pass, and now it's fourth down, and we got to kick the field goal. But
because they ran the stunt, he came in on the guard because he wasn't expecting that. Because what you expect is he's the outside linebacker. Perry is. He comes around. You have that clear window. He came around the defensive end, and he has that giant club.
Yeah,
he saw that, and he knocked it down. But
bottom line is that should have been third down and not fourth down.
Yeah, I see what you mean. They should have had an extra down.
Right. The down was more important than the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
especially because Aaron Rodgers is on the other side.
And you figure Aaron Rodgers did the same thing with even less time. You're worried about time, and it's like, well, man, you still have timeouts, you still have all this stuff. You could have done quick draw. You should have built-in plays, shock plays where you come down. One thing before we finish the end of the game, I did want to get your opinion on was the usage of Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, that's your money guy. That's your beast. And how do you feel Dallas used him?
I feel like the fact that Green Bay just got out to such a quick lead so suddenly that it kind of threw off the Dallas game plan and they were unable to consistently run the ball as many times as they wanted to. I felt if Dallas was going to win, that Ezekiel Elliott would have to touch the ball 28 to 30 times. But he only touched the ball 22 times, and it was because of that lead. But then I can't really just give the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff a pass because early in the game, they were passing when I felt like they should have been running. There's 2 or 3 drives where it was 2nd and 1, and they pass. And it wasn't even a deep pass. It wasn't like they were going for the big play. I mean, they're throwing little quick slants or bubble screens when Ezekiel Elliott, like you said, he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. This defense has no chance in hell of stopping this guy, and yet you're getting cute. So I'm not forgiving the Dallas coaching staff for that early on. And another thing, did you know that one penalty on Bryce Butler that stopped the drive when Dak hit a long completion to Terrence Williams? That was a negative 37-yard play. And you know when's the last time they called that penalty?
When?
1984. When I was watching that game, I look around to my friend and I say, what the hell? I never even heard of that penalty. I've never even seen that penalty. No. And it's a 15-yard personal foul?
Yeah, I don't understand the classification of it.
Shouldn't that be a 5-yard penalty? But hey, again, they're pulling rules from 1984 that I've never seen enforced, and hey, have at it.
And Aaron Rodgers is using these tricks of the trade. People get on him for that, but that's your own fault. Not that play, but the 12 men on the field on defense. He just takes advantage of that. But I will say this about the coaching staff before we end this game. The dramatic end of it is, we always say bye weeks and time off affect players. It can affect coaches too. It can affect how they decide. I mean, sometimes maybe coaches have too much time on their hands to game plan. Sometimes you outthink yourself. Oh, we're gonna get cute. No, don't. Just do what got you there. Running the ball got you there. And like we said, Dak does an amazing job. Gets him down the field for the field goal. It is interesting. I do get a laugh at a scene. He can't look at the field goal, so he has Mark Sanchez. Is that Mark Sanchez's official job is to tell people who don't want to look at the field goal? Yeah, that's pretty much
what he's best at.
Yeah, we made it. Yeah, he just tells everyone that didn't see. You give Aaron Rodgers, 38 seconds. He goes and he gets this. When he gets the sack, I think, okay, they're going into overtime.
So did I.
If Dak gets the ball, it's over. They're going to get the touchdown. They're not getting a field goal. They're getting a touchdown. And it's just a replay of what's happened to Aaron Rodgers so many times. So I think he took this personal. Something we don't think about is it happened to him against Seattle. He did blow the first half. Was it 2 years ago in the NFC Championship game?
Yeah.
They roared, They get ahead. Seattle comes back. He goes for the field goal. They go in overtime. Seattle gets the ball. He never sees it. They lose. Arizona, great Hail Mary play. Goes in overtime. Arizona gets the ball. He never sees it and they lose. He knew, I think, I got to score. I don't care if it's a touchdown, field goal, whatever I need to do, I need to do. 38 seconds left, time winding down. I think there was 16 left when he made the play. Rolls out, the guard of the tackle goes with him and protects him. And he rolls.
That was a called play.
Yeah. I mean,
he
that's
designed
amazing.
that.
I mean, he tells him.
The tackle literally drifts.
Yeah.
He doesn't even block. He doesn't even block the defensive end on his side.
No. As soon as he snaps it, he takes off. And Aaron Rodgers he does like a spin out.
Yeah.
And he kind of goes that way.
He was expecting blitz.
Yeah. And he kind of hops and he goes for it. And he hits a 35-yard play to a diving Jared Cook. And you look at that play and it's like people say, oh, Aaron Rodgers, that's easy. That's amazing to throw that.
It's amazing just to be able to have the confidence and, just the confidence and I guess the ability not only to make the play physically, but to draw that up on the fly like he did.
Yeah.
I mean, I give Aaron Rodgers all the props in the world. Predicting this game, I thought Dallas was the better team. I still think Dallas is the better team. But obviously when you have the best football player.
You have two things working against you if you're Dallas. They have Aaron Rodgers and they have the hand of God. Because that field goal was going out and some way magically pushed right back in.
That's because Jerry Jones had an interview this weekend where he reminded the world, I'm trying to get over on God still on this one because I told him 20 years ago, such and such years ago, that I'll never want another one again as long as you win this. And
I think he might have to do something there for that one.
I think you woke him up.
Yep. Said, I forgot about that. But enough with the games.
Yeah, that wraps up the divisional round of the playoffs. Let's start looking at the actual championship games, AFC and NFC. Which side do you want to start on?
Let's start with the AFC.
Okay, let's go with the AFC. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to New England, where the Patriots are 6-point favorites.
Wow, I didn't know that line until right now. That's amazing, because you're dealing with two of the best quarterbacks, and you're dealing with a Pittsburgh team that they're pretty balanced on both sides of the ball. Almost balanced team. You have your triplets in Bell and Brown and Ben. And to think that New England, as great as they are going to beat them by a touchdown, I find that hard to believe.
Well, when you think about it, look, they always give the home team 3 points. So if they were playing on a neutral field, they're saying this is a field goal game. So in a sense, it's fair. I do think 6 is a bit much.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.5. But, we're splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah. And how do you think both teams? How do you think their game plans are going to go? If you had to guess,
I feel like the answer for Pittsburgh to pull off the upset is going to be kind of what Green Bay did to Dallas this weekend and jump on them early. Yeah. Because they have the firepower to do so, and the way that Le'Veon Bell is running the ball, and they can spread him out and he can catch. He could spread the field, or they can move him back into the backfield and run up the middle. There's nothing that he can't do. And I think if you can expose the New England defense by mismatching them all around the field and get some easy points up early, you put them behind the 8 ball, that's when the pass rushers for Pittsburgh. You got Ryan Shazier. He was somebody I liked coming out of college. I wanted him on the Cowboys. But, they got him, and you see him, and he wreaks havoc. Yeah. So you see that Tom Brady can be rattled. We saw that this last weekend with Jadeveon Clowney and the pass rushers that they have on Houston. If they can get him behind and they can get the rush on Brady, I can see the upset happening this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I think Pittsburgh's plan is going to be pretty cut and dry. Is blitz Brady, make him. He doesn't have Gronk to throw it up to. I know he's got weapons. You're going to want to put pressure on him, get him sacked. And if you get the ball or you force them to get field goals, if you're Pittsburgh, you cannot settle for field goals. You have to get touchdowns against New England.
Yeah.
Because sooner or later, they're going to max protect. They're going to be smart. I think for New England, what New England's going to want to do is take Bell out of the game. I think if you're New England, you're Belichick, you sell out to stop the run on 1st and 2nd down. You stop Bell. You keep them in 3rd and long. And you try to get Ben to throw interceptions.
Yeah.
And on offense, if you're them, I think you run the ball. I think you take LeGarrette Blount and you run the ball and run the ball. And you try to wear out their pass rushers because they're not big.
Yes.
They're not these tall, giant pass rushers. And then you try to get, if you can get Deion Lewis on one of them.
I was just going to say that.
You know,
That I think the running game for New England's going to play a big part if they're able to get that going early, though.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're going to see a big difference in the first half. The kind of runner that LeGarrette Blount is, he's going to wear you down.
Yeah.
And once he wears you down, he's going to get into the end zone. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He doesn't, break off these huge 25-plus yard gains. He doesn't do that.
No.
But when he's in the red zone and he's worn you down, he's getting in that end zone. He's a tough runner.
And I think that's been the way New England's kind of drawn it up in the postseason is you give it to Blount. They did it against the Colts in the AFC Championship 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You want to be able to wear them. And I think you want to slow down Pittsburgh's pass rush. And I think once you can do that, unfortunately for New England, I don't think they have the weapons to really take complete advantage of Pittsburgh's deficiencies. I mean, you don't have these great wide receivers to throw to, but if you can get Deion Lewis, you can scheme him. You can get Julian Edelman behind the defense.
Yeah, and he can.
And I think he has the ability, what you want to do, like you said, they run the ball, they force those linebackers in because I think they'll bite. I think they're very aggressive linebackers. If you can get Deion Lewis, maybe you have both of them on there, or you shift Deion Lewis out in the outside. You play action to him, to Edelman. You try to get over their defensive linebackers, and that's how I think New England tries to win it. I'm gonna go with my prediction, and I mean I'll be honest with you, this is an all heart pick. I like Pittsburgh. I think that they're able to put pressure on Brady. I think this is a big game for Ben Roethlisberger. If Ben Roethlisberger really wants to put himself with him and Rodgers as far as Brady goes, he has to beat Tom Brady. When was the last time you remember Ben Roethlisberger beating Tom Brady?
It's been a while.
Peyton Manning's done it. Eli Manning's done it. You have to beat. He's the king of the AFC. Just like we talk about Aaron in the NFC, it's Tom Brady in the AFC. You have to beat that man to get some recognition. And Ben is great, but I mean, and you got 2 Super Bowls. But if you want to go down as, in this conversation of greatest quarterback of our generation, you have to do this. You have the weapons. You have the running game. You have the defense. There's no excuse for you to be a top quarterback like him and not do it. And I think he will. My prediction is that Pittsburgh Steelers go into the Foxborough and walk away with a 35-31 win.
Wow.
To advance to Super Bowl 51.
Wow. Bold pick. I mean, you're picking against arguably the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yes.
And the greatest coach, arguably, of all time, together with one of the greatest home field advantages in the playoffs that we've seen in recent years. And you're picking against them.
That's all. In my logic, my brain is screaming, what are you doing, idiot? You need to pick New England because you even said how they're going to do it. And you know that that's what they're going to do. And they've done it. And for some reason, it always seems like New England can get under Pittsburgh's skin.
Yes, I've noticed that. Even when Pittsburgh had those vaunted defenses with Polamalu, and they still have,
Well, no, like when they had Polamalu and they had Ryan Clark, and they had
safety, that's
Ike
right.
Taylor and all these guys.
They had that, and they still could rattle them and beat them somehow, some way, when I didn't even think that was possible.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go with the more logical pick here, and I'm picking Pittsburgh 28, New England 23. I just feel like it's a perfect matchup. And the fact is, right now, Pittsburgh offense is moving. Yeah. And if they, just like Green Bay, and I kind of see a very similar game.
Yeah.
And so I'm going a little bit lower score than you. I don't feel that it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah.
But it's going to come down to the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And I feel that by that time, Pittsburgh will be able to put the pressure on Brady at the end of the game. Yeah. They're going to win that game on defense.
You think so?
Believe it or not. But it's going to be attributed to what the offense does early.
All right. Makes sense.
Okay, so then we got the NFC Championship game. And we got the Green Bay Packers going into could be the last game played at the Georgia Dome?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I believe I had the line here. I'm missing it. Green Bay
they're down. I think
is down 5.5 points.
Yeah, Atlanta's a favorite. I think I've read 5.5 around there.
Yeah, I think Atlanta is the favorite. As much as we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and praising him, even on our show here and the national media as well, I just think Atlanta is, again, I made this mistake the last 2 playoff games, but I just feel like it's a more complete team.
Yeah.
And I feel like Atlanta somehow, some way matches up just a little bit better than either Dallas or New York.
I think so too. And I mean, look, Dallas is the best running game, but I think, I mean, this is the truth. It's not an opinion. Atlanta's the better offense, than Dallas was. And I think their running game is more diverse.
I think they're more explosive. I don't know if they're better. They're more explosive.
I mean, they scored 7th most points in all NFL history. I think they're better.
They did, but just to defend my point, I don't believe Dallas tries to score as many points.
I mean, I
think they try to hold on the ball, and they're just efficient when they're in the red zone. They were the best red zone team in the NFL.
Yeah, and I just, because when I look at Atlanta, and I don't want to have to use Dallas. This isn't personal, but I think that it's because Green Bay played Dallas last, so I kind of use them as the measuring stick to Atlanta when I use Atlanta. Is I feel like they have their receivers are a little bit better as far as secondary.
They're better,
and I think that you have more diversity with Freeman and Coleman. These guys, and the way that
they're
Atlanta
much more
them.
versatile
Yeah.
than the Dallas offense, and thus, to my point, I think they're more explosive.
Yeah.
I've talked about how Julio Jones can play any receiver spot on the field.
Yeah.
Des Bryant can't do that.
No.
Ezekiel Elliott. They say he can catch passes. I've seen him do it at Ohio State, but I have yet to see him do it with the star on his helmet. But I have seen Devontae Freeman do that. And again, he's more versatile, more explosive. But I don't know if I'd say much better.
Well, I think they are, and this is and we'll get. I mean, we can have that one as a debate later, but
we're gonna have to.
Yeah, but I think what it is that it's also the way Atlanta uses them. Dallas, I don't think asks Ezekiel Elliott to catch as much as
right.
It's a different system.
Right.
Matt Ryan's probably going to be the MVP. He had a great year. I mean, that's what everyone's saying because he didn't have the lull that Aaron Rodgers had. They were never in danger of missing the playoffs the way Aaron Rodgers' team was. And
they were in control of the division from beginning to end.
Yeah. I mean, I think they beat everybody, right?
Yeah. Did they sweep the division? I have to double check.
No, they lost. I know they lost once to the Bucs. But I know they swept Carolina, and I think they swept New Orleans. But 4-2, they had a control of that division.
Yeah.
They've already beaten Green Bay. In a shootout down in the
that
Georgia
was week 8, right?
Yeah.
They beat 33-32. It was like a point, right?
Yeah. I think they went for 2 or so. I forget how that one ended, but it was a shootout, and I think that's what we're going to see again. I think they have an ability to take advantage of Green Bay's defense in a way I don't think Dallas did. And I mean, I just think Atlanta is probably the best team. After watching, I mean, it's a prisoner of the moment watching them, what they did to the Legion of Boom in Seattle. That's probably the most diverse offense that is the NFC in the NFC. I mean, if it was Dallas and them and Dallas had won, it's Dallas and Atlanta based on what I saw, I think I'd still pick Atlanta. And I want to pick Atlanta. Common sense says pick Atlanta. I have no notes on this. This is the only game I didn't take notes on because why bother taking notes on an Aaron Rodgers game when it makes no sense anymore? He's defied all logic. He's going to go in there. He's going to pull one out of his ass. And he's going to beat the Atlanta Falcons. We'll say 38-35.
Nice score. So before I give my score, I just want to recap this a bit. I agree with you wholeheartedly that the Atlanta Falcons are by far the most explosive offense. And Matt Ryan, like you said, he threw for just under 5,000 yards this season. Devontae Freeman's a 1,000-yard rusher. He can also, he's also a great pass-catching back. Julio Jones is, in my opinion, the best receiver in the game today. He had over 1,400 yards. But I know this is going to be a shootout, and I agree with you there. And he's going up against the best quarterback alive right now. But I think that the difference and why Atlanta matches up just a little bit better than, say, Dallas or New York is the way that they can rush the passer. Vic Beasley, 15.5 sacks. He led the league. Okay, he can get after the quarterback. We didn't see Dallas get after Aaron Rodgers very much unless they blitzed. And it wasn't even like linebackers or linemen were getting home. Those were DBs that got home because they weren't expecting them.
Yeah.
But I think Atlanta has a way to do it. Deion Jones, he plays good. He had 108 tackles. He also had 3 interceptions. So they have the playmakers. They're not a stout defense by any stretch of the imagination. But again, similar like the Oakland Raiders, they have the one or two big playmakers on defense. And if they could force a turnover or two with that offense, I think they can win the shootout, especially because they're at home.
Yeah.
And so, in the end, I'm going to go complete shootout here. This game is going to remind you of that Aaron Rodgers-Kurt Warner playoff game.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not quite there.
That was a ridiculous.
But I'm going to go Atlanta over Green Bay. You're my last hope, Atlanta. 41-38.
Oh. So we both have Green Bay scoring 38 points. It's just whether it's going to be enough or not.
Yeah.
I'll say this. Atlanta's defense, especially their secondary, they have some speed. I think they have speed, whereas Dallas's secondary was more athletic. But I don't know if they had the speed that they say Atlanta's defense has.
No, the DBs are definitely quicker than the Dallas DBs.
And, I mean, you look at a guy like Brooks Reed, who's, journeyman defensive lineman. But what he did to Seattle. Now, the difference, I'll say this, and I think what will bolster the point is they went up against a weaker offensive line in Seattle than what Green Bay has. So I think that it negates what they did. Now, you're right. I think they'll get sacks on Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And I think we both think that's going to be just a great game to watch, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to that game probably even a little bit more than the AFC, even though the big names are on the AFC.
Yeah.
I think this will be a better game. So to wrap this up, let's go ahead and finish it off with our true or false segment. And I'll kick off with the first one. Lots of news this week. So, as you know, the Chargers moved to LA from San Diego. So the question, we'll start with them. The Chargers will be the most successful team in Los Angeles next season.
Now, if we're talking about logos, that's a false.
Oh, that logo's horrible. It's an abomination.
I mean, I don't hate it, but it's like, no.
It's a complete ripoff. It's a complete ripoff of the Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
That's pretty crazy. Did they Google search LA and Lightning?
Yes, that's what they did.
Oh,
that's
man.
what came up.
But logos aside, I'm going to say true. I think that when you look at the Chargers, they have the better quarterback.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, I think they have a better offensive line. And in having a better offensive line and a quarterback, and they have a running game, it's not what Todd Gurley is as far as Melvin Gordon for San Diego or for LA.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be who can find the pieces on the O-line to get their running backs going.
Yeah, but I think they can put up points.
Yeah, right.
And I think that for LA, even if San Diego goes 7-9, San Diego, if the Chargers, I got to say Chargers now, Chargers. If the Chargers go 7-9 or 8-8, but they're putting up, points and it's exciting. That's more attractive than what the Rams offer, because the Rams, we still don't know if that offense gets going. We both think that McVay is going to be a good head coach. Yeah. He's young, but he's a smart mind, But their signature is still defense,
right? And the personnel is completely geared towards defense.
Yeah, and the Rams they've made good strides. They got rid of Jeff Fisher. That's first and foremost.
Well, I think they might. You might have gave away your whole argument with that one. So I think he was holding them back more than anybody.
You hire Sean McVay, you hire Wade Phillips to run your defense. They're in the right direction. But right now, if I'm going to sit there and watch a game, I want to watch the Chargers more than I want to watch the Rams, because there's an opportunity to watch excitement with Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen.
But you might not be able to get tickets for a Chargers game because their StubHub Center only seats 27,000 people.
That's ridiculous. This is an NFL. I think the Rose Bowl seats more than that.
Right. I mean, come on.
I mean, they're playing at is it Sandy or is it Cal State Dominguez Hills or something?
Yeah.
I mean, we joked about imagine them being good enough to win, to be the best team in the AFC, and the AFC Championship game is in an arena
center.
In the StubHub Center. I mean, that's a joke.
It is, man. I think the whole move was a joke.
Yeah, I think it is. But I'm going to say true, because I think that right now people in LA want to see offense, especially because the Rams gave us such a poor product on offense that people want to see points. People go to those games. They'll sit there and say, I'd rather go see the Chargers in, the Raiders, or the Chargers in New England, the Chargers in Pittsburgh. Imagine that one,
Yeah, we're going to see early, because I think whoever, performs better in the first quarter of the season through the first 4 games is going to win the battle for LA.
Yeah.
But before we move on the Chargers, you brought up one thing, a scenario, because we've heard they want to move in with the LA Rams in the new stadium, right?
Yes.
Okay, Now, they cannot change the logo for the Chargers due to, I think, the NFL rules on because, they have their sponsors with Nike and they design the jerseys and they can't, pull the rug up from under them.
Well, no, I think it's the same thing. It's the same process when you want to change your jersey altogether, when you want to do like what the Bucks did or what Seattle did.
It's like a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they can't just change, the Chargers.
Yeah.
But let's say, they're going to go ahead and they're going to rent out that stadium with the Rams and they're no longer the Chargers. Let's just say they become, the LA Fire.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think Charger fans would still stick with the team, even though they're no longer Chargers? And then you posed this question earlier before we got on the mics, and you said, how would you feel if you were a Charger fan? And, the Chargers, let's say the Jacksonville Jaguars, who don't do too good with, in their stadium as far as attendance goes, and they move to San Diego and take on the moniker of Chargers. I mean, how would you feel?
I think this question is location. I think it's two things. I think if you live in San Diego and you still want to be a Chargers fan, there's probably very few left. But if
I disagree with that because where you're going, because you got to remember they're pissed off at the owner. Well, that's not the Chargers.
But see, my thing is this: is that they're mad at him for leaving. If there was an owner who came to San Diego and said, "I want to play I want my team to play here. I'm gonna front the money. This is a great place," and they took on the San Diego Chargers thing, I think a lot of San Diego fans would be reunited as Charger fans. I think if they come and they have pop, I think a lot of people in the Orange County who are Charger fans, I think they'll go back. Yeah, I really do. And I think they'll go back. And I think even LA fans, if you're if you're a Chargers fan who lives in LA, I think you'll go back to being a Chargers fan because, and maybe this isn't fair for me to use, but I just don't trust the Charger owners right now.
No.
I just don't. What's going to happen to that team the day Phillip Rivers retires? Think about that for a second.
Honestly, at this point, they're just hanging on with him because the rest of that team, the way they've done it in drafts, the way they've let go of free agents, one big problem was when they let go of Vincent Jackson. I thought that showed you, what they thought about the team to let him go. I know Tampa offered him big bucks and, but still, you don't let a guy like that get out. He's a big, talented, fast wide receiver.
Yep.
So that's the Chargers. So moving on, here's another interesting question. Here's another, I should say, statement. Brock Osweiler will be the starting quarterback for the Texans next season.
I mean, if everyone has eyes, and so your eyes tell you false because you watch how awful he is, but then you're stuck with him. You really kind of are.
At least for a season.
Yeah. So I think
if you cut him, you pay $6 million to cut him.
Jesus.
Could he be that bad? Would you be that coach and you get up to that press conference and they say, "Oh, what moves have you made today?" Well, we cut Brock Osweiler. Well, why? Well, don't you have eyes? Did you see him last season?
I mean, I feel like that's what I would.
We're paying him $6 million to leave. You want?
I think they can couch it. They can find a way. NFL teams, they can find a way, or coaches, they can spin it away where like it was his first year and all this stuff. What will tell you? There's only two options I think they can go, is because there's money tied into him, because they're they don't have cap flexibility to really go sign a big name quarterback, or I think they can trade for Garoppolo because he's still on his rookie deal.
He's the hot commodity this offseason.
Or you take a quarterback in the first round. And those are cheap options. Those are cheap options. Do you think that they can get a Romo?
The talk in Texas is that they can. Okay, they can because if you don't cut Osweiler, you do save $6 million as opposed to if you cut him. Okay, nobody else on your offense really makes big money. Okay, it's all everybody on the defense. So if Romo could negotiate a contract for a sign and trade like type of deal. It's not exactly a sign and trade like NBA, but a negotiation of it. They can fit a pretty high, another high salary in there. They were saying.
Really?
So it's possible. I mean, it's improbable.
Yeah,
but it's possible.
And I think improbable applies to both the Garoppolo and the drafting of a quarterback. I think sadly it's going to be an open competition between him and Savage next year. Yeah, and I think it'll start off with Brock. I think. Some of this will be wiped from our minds when August and September rolls around. And I think it's true. I think sadly for Texans fans, that Brock Osweiler will be under center next year.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go on to the next statement. This one's for Chief fans. The combo of Andy Reid and Alex Smith has reached the ceiling of their potential together in Kansas City.
I have a Kansas City. We have a friend who's a Chiefs fan, and I mean, he probably hates my guts. Completely understand, and I'm not doing myself any favors with our friendship here, but I'm gonna say, yeah, this is it. I just, you have Andy Reid, and this is what Andy Reid is known for in Philly. He just gets you right there. And I think Donovan McNabb kind of got him maybe a game ahead, because I think Donovan McNabb was a better quarterback. But you have kind of an average quarterback in Alex Smith, and Alex Smith is great. But, I mean, I read you his stat line. I mean, 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. That's a playoff game. That's where you expect him to be at his best. I know they didn't have a great running game, but you still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Jeremy Maclin. I know Travis Kelce dropped one, but you need to have a big game, and as a head coach, you need to do it. You have the best home field advantages. You had a week off. Pittsburgh stumbled. They didn't score a touchdown, like you said, and you couldn't beat them. And I think that this divisional round is the best they'll ever get.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say true as well. And, I mean, I really can't disagree with anything you've said. There's honestly not much I can add to it. It's really hard to be critical of them because Alex Smith has generally been a successful quarterback in this league year in and year out, and Andy Reid is a successful coach year in and year out. But it's just like you don't see those two as – you see them as playoff caliber quarterbacks and coaches, but not Super Bowl caliber quarterbacks and coaches.
I just can't see – it's easy for me to see Ben beat, Brady. It's easy for me. I've seen.
You talk about Garoppolo.
Maybe he goes there. Maybe they draft a quarterback. Maybe Andy Reid.
I mean, if I'm a guy like Garoppolo, I'd rather go there because you got a defense. You have special teams. You have that.
There's pieces there.
Yeah, there's pieces there. So.
Yeah, I think so. And you have Andy Reid's a great coach, and he does well with quarterbacks. I mean, that's his natural inclination is to nurture and foster quarterbacks. But I just think that what you saw on Sunday night in Kansas City is the best between those two. Yeah. Switch it up, maybe it changes, but right now I think we both say it's true.
Yeah.
So I'll handle these last three for us. So, true or false? Antonio Brown crossed the line with his infamous now Facebook live post of the Steelers after game celebration and Tomlin's speech after the game.
I'd say absolutely 100% true. I mean, I don't think there's any room. I mean, he's getting paid. He's an employee of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a professional. And what he did was unprofessional. That's not only a violation of Steelers rules, but it's a violation of NFL rules. They cannot be on any type of social media 90 minutes before the game time in a locker room, or I don't think it's 90 minutes, but I think it's like an hour or something. There's some allotted time that they're not allowed to. And he did. And he was doing it blatantly. And he wasn't even paying attention to the message that his head coach was sending. And often, like, they tell you just at a regular Joe Blow job or in school, even if you're great enough to be a distraction yourself and do what you want to do and do your own thing, you shouldn't pull your teammates into that. And he was doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, you're putting your coach on blast.
They did.
Like, I mean, you have to know, in my mind, that's probably not the first time Mike Tomlin's talked like that. So that's not what he wants the world to see. This is for you guys to see.
Right.
And, it's one of those things where, come on, you need to think better, And Tomlin came out and lit him up. I mean.
He did. I saw that press conference.
And then he straight up said, this is why great players don't stay on one team very long. Yeah. And, that's a shot. I mean, and he wasn't a first-round pick making a bunch of money.
And he's looking to get money.
Yeah.
He's looking to get paid.
That doesn't help, No. And you're starting. This is why we said, we looked at talent. We talked about wide receivers, and it's always Odell Beckham. But Odell Beckham has a penchant for making mistakes and kind of losing his head. So we shift to Antonio Brown. But the more he acts up, you shift away to a guy like Julio Jones, who has just the amount of talent but doesn't do those things. Yeah. And isn't a headache for your quarterback. Isn't coming out to say, it's not what we want, or Tomlin having to do this. And I know people dismiss this for the Patriots side. Oh, the Patriots don't care. Let me tell you something. If you don't think the Patriots give a crap about this, you're full of it. Because you remember when they played the Steelers, I forget, a few years ago in the playoff game, and everyone said, I think it was one of the safeties for the Steelers said, oh, they're overrated, or Tom Brady, we figured them out, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Remember
they
that?
Blew them up.
You think
and they attacked that guy that said it. I remember that game. I don't remember the actual player.
Yeah.
But I remember they targeted him like so many times.
Do you think that was just an accident? Oh, no. Yeah. No. Okay. No. So they do take this stuff personal. Like they're going to be like, oh, wow.
They're people too, as much as they can admit it.
Yeah. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I think we both agree they crossed the line. And I do agree that, watch Pittsburgh do, watch, New England try to go after him.
We want to reverse that pick.
Yeah, me too.
The way we're talking.
Yeah, but I'll go ahead and shoot to the last two. So, true or false? The Jimmy Graham Max Unger trade was a failure for both teams, not just one.
I'm gonna go another one. True, and just on the fact that Jimmy Graham has never seemed like a natural fit for the Seattle offense, and not only that, but I think I've seen quite a few games where they try to incorporate him into their game plan, and it's just not working. They're a running team. They're a team that has won historically with a great defense and, a good running game and complementary passing game. And when you start the game off targeting Jimmy Graham, they're not used to that, and they haven't had success with that. And then you look at the offensive line. I mean, Russell Wilson's been running for his life the last year and a half.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how big of a difference Max Unger was to that team, but it couldn't have hurt. And on the opposite side, what have the Saints done?
Yeah, and I think I'll speak on that, is that I think it's true too, because you'll want to sit there and say, well, what about the Max Unger side? Because all we focus on, all anybody focuses on is on Jimmy Graham. And it hasn't, New Orleans hasn't become this great running game. He was the anchor of a great running game in Seattle, and that hasn't even come to any type of fruition in New Orleans. So I think that they were better off this was about both teams, I think, kind of being cheap.
Yeah.
Neither one of them wanted to invest in that position.
Yeah.
Because Seattle thought, well, we have Russell Wilson, we have Tom Cable for some reason.
Yeah.
These two will be able to cover this line. We're not going to pay for a center. You have New Orleans thinking, well, why are we going to pay a tight end? We have Drew Brees. We have all these weapons.
Yeah.
And they didn't realize that. I think Drew Brees would be a lot happier, and they would have been better if they would have kept Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
And I think keeping Max Unger and just paying him his money would have done them a wealth of good. Because at the end of the day, you still have to pay these players. And neither one team has been better. They're not better. Seattle's not better, and neither is New Orleans. So I think it's both true.
Yeah.
But neither one of these teams have prospered because of this.
Definitely.
Okay, so this last one is for you. This is my last parting gift to you. True or false? The Dallas Cowboys season is considered a failure for losing in the divisional round. True or false?
A lot of people are going to try to fool you and say true. Maybe you'll try to fool the audience too. But the fact of the matter is this season was not a failure. Okay? What it is was it's a disappointment because expectations changed throughout a season. They started off, the first game of the year with a rookie QB and a rookie running back and a no-name defense.
Yeah.
And nobody gave them a shot to even win the division. I've seen analysts predicting the teams, and they had Dallas third or fourth in a lot of those picks. And even I knew, I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I couldn't say they were going to win it without Romo.
Yeah.
Before Romo, I still thought they would. But that all aside, as the expectations evolved, you saw that Dak wasn't an ordinary fourth-round pick, and you saw that Zeke wasn't an ordinary fourth overall pick. And the expectations rose, and I expected them to get at least to the divisional round. Past the divisional round and into the championship. But again, in the end, when you look at everything, it was a disappointing end, but not a failure. And here's what I'll say. I'll end with this. It's not a failure because you found your quarterback of the future. You found your running back of the future. You have the best offensive line, in the league. And a lot of defensive players individually stepped up this year. Young players. Anthony Brown, he's a starting corner. He's not great, but he's a starting corner. You had Malik Collins. He's not great, but he's a starting D lineman. So you see that and you have those places in peace. We drafted Jalen Smith in the second round. He didn't play, not one down because of the injury in the bowl game for Notre Dame. But from what they say, he'll be ready to go by OTAs. So if he can give us anything, how is it a failure?
It's a failure because, and it's a failure, maybe it's just me being personally just having to hear it for a whole season. It's a failure because the notion began, and you're right, expectations change, and that's why it is a failure. And it's true because you weren't expected to, once you got the number 1 seed, once you won 11 games, once you beat the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, you were not expected to lose this game. It's the truth. No one really picked Green Bay, and if you did, the only reason you picked Green Bay is because of Aaron Rodgers. I didn't pick Green Bay. Very few people I saw did. Why? Because we all said the better team is in Dallas. I don't care if it's the younger team. It's still the better team. And they failed. And they failed in the first quarter. And you know what? You need to play better. And what gets me with Dallas is, yes, and I've always felt this way. There's a difference between a season and a franchise. Really, really original Madden players will remember that there was the season option and the franchise option. You remember that you could play one season or you could play a franchise. And I like the way Max Kellerman on First Take talks about it because they're two different things. Do I think the franchise is in disarray? No. The franchise is set up for success for the next 10 years. But this season, once you go in there and you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, you beat the Green Bay Packers, you beat the Philadelphia Eagles, you beat Minnesota, you beat a lot of playoff teams and a lot of playoff contenders. You beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You were supposed to win. And the fact that you let a one-man show, as great as he is, and maybe the hand of God, beat a team is a failure. And maybe it's not a failure on the players. Maybe it's a failure on the coaches. They failed.
The coaches kept these coaches got this team to 13-3.
Mm-hmm.
A first-round bye.
The number 1 seed.
And
a loss in the division.
Exceeded all expectations preseason.
Mm-hmm.
And they set the tone and the message. And they stood consistent. And Dallas, say what you want about the loss, but they lost the same way they won, fighting. This team did not get blown out this season. This team lost the game by 1 point, 3 points, and 3 points. A total of a touchdown that we've lost those games. Okay, I don't count the Philadelphia game.
No one does.
But that's a 7. That's a 7. That's 7 points.
Nobody does. Don't worry about that.
This team fought hard. And yes, I agree with the point of franchise mode. But let's go with a season. How many other franchises would trade for the kind of season that Dallas had?
Every team that's not in the playoffs. But
I mean, so how could that be a failure?
Because you're not the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
You're the Dallas Cowboys. You weren't expected.
So if you were a Dallas fan,
uh-huh,
you would say that was a failure of a season?
Do I think
not a failure of a game. Not a failure of that game. You failed to win that game.
Yes.
No argument there. But you failed throughout the season? I mean, you're going to tell... Okay, let me ask you something. If you had the opportunity to interview Dak Prescott, would you tell him you failed this season?
No. I'm not going to tell him because it wasn't just one person.
Uh-huh.
It's a team. And the last thing I said was he put it on the coaches. I'll tell Jason Garrett, yeah, you failed this season because your expectations, once the season ended, because it's 2 different seasons. You have regular season, you have postseason. Once that postseason set in, expectations. You thought there was a time where they thought he was good. Dak Prescott and Zeke Elliott were fighting for MVP of the league. If I put it to you like this, in a vacuum, if I told you there were 2 MVP candidates on a team that won 11 straight, that had the number 1 seed. If this was Green Bay, if Green Bay went and did what Dallas did and they went and lost, we would call that season a failure. If Tom Brady was he is an MVP candidate. If Tom Brady went and lost in the divisional round to like Kansas City, we would call that a failure of a season. If you're the number 1 seed in the NFC, they're not just favoring you to win this game against Green Bay. They're favoring you to go to the Super Bowl and maybe even beat Tom Brady. That's a failure. It's just that we want to give them a pass because they were rookies. They're no longer rookies. We're going to hold them to the standard.
Well, they were rookies. Look. they were not ordinary rookies by any stretch of the imagination. And I agree, and I set the tone when I said, hey, these expectations evolve, but this is their rookie season. Dak and Zeke had no playoff experience. And I am the first one to tell you experience is overrated. But that is a fact.
Yes.
They were rookies.
Yes.
So I don't see how you can tell these rookies that their season was a failure.
They can look back and see great moments. Yeah, they had great improvements and they had great memorable moments. They had great games. But you have to look at it like this. If I call their season a failure, I'm not saying the Pittsburgh win was a failure. No, I'm not. That was a great win because they won the game. But what I'm saying is when your expectations are now meet the Super Bowl and at the very least beat Green Bay, who had no running game, who didn't have their number one wide receiver, who when Dallas, this is what gets me, is that when you look at that game, if Dallas wanted to throw the ball, they could do it with success. Des Bryant, 9 receptions, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. So they could do that whenever they wanted to. When they wanted to run the ball, they could do that too. 5.8 yards per carry, 125 yards on, 22 carries.
Yeah.
Whatever they wanted to do. When you wanted to blitz Rodgers, you could blitz Rodgers and it worked. Everything that Dallas wanted to do in that game, they could do. They were expected to win. I'm going to hold them to a high standard because we're talking about them like they were MVP candidates. We were talking about them like they were great. Okay. Name an MVP candidate that loses in the first round that we wouldn't call a failure to.
Well, look, it's not. Then this is an entirely separate argument. And you know what? Let's make it. It's not the first round. There's no first and second round. That's in the NBA playoffs. That's in the NCAA tournament. There is the wild card round, and then there's a divisional round, and there's a championship round. I didn't say that they're not a playoff winner, but they didn't lose in the first round. They lost in the divisional round. When you get a bye, you go to the divisional round.
All right, I'll give you that.
Because I'll tell you why. Then this bothers me. And you know what? This is more important to me than the question in the beginning. Right. Because I hate when people say, oh, you know what? You lost your first playoff game, which that's true. You lost your first playoff game. But they do that. And this has nothing to do with the Cowboys. This has more to do with just, I don't know, that old school NFL mentality that I think is outdated where you lost your first playoff game. So you're telling me a team like Seattle, who, because they had to play a wild card game and beat the crap out of a going nowhere fast Detroit Lions team, had a more impressive postseason because they have one postseason win?
No.
I mean, yeah, and that bothers me. So to say that, like, first round, it's like, no, we didn't lose there is no first round, number one. We lost in the divisional round.
Okay. You lost in the divisional round. Seattle lost in the divisional round. They're both failures. Okay. If there was a team, I'll put it like this. If Kansas City, I don't look as a failure because I just don't have that expectation of them. And I didn't expect it even when they had the 2 seed. They have the 2 seed. Here's the thing. They had the 2 seed.
They had home field.
They had the 2 seed because Derek Carr blew out his knee or broke his leg.
Yeah.
Else they don't get the 2 seed.
Right.
Okay. They probably lose that round. And just my opinion. So when you're in the playoffs, I think especially when you're in the divisional round. Okay.
Yes.
You're in the divisional round for one of 2 reasons. Either you beat a wild card team,
right,
or you were great in the regular season and earned a bye.
Right.
Okay. And did you notice that all of them are rematches of great games or games that were exciting in the regular season because these are the best of the best?
Right.
Okay. So if I say I would rather, failure is not equal. If I say they had their season was a failure, I'll take that failure over Jacksonville's failure.
Right.
Okay. So I don't always want it to be this super negative hate connotation. But if I were to be honest and I looked at it fairly, you had, like I said, 2 MVPs. They were the number 1 seed. And I think that Jerry thought, you asked Jerry, what do you think you're going to do? Oh, we're going to the Super Bowl. Now, to be fair, Jerry probably thinks that every year.
Every year.
Okay.
But every NFL team and every NFL player and coach and GM should go into a season thinking they have a shot.
Yes, but not everyone goes into the postseason thinking they have a shot. Not everyone goes in there thinking and it's the thought of.
But it's not NBA. Like, it's not a 7-game series. Like, it's do or die. And look, the Cowboys had one bad quarter.
Yeah.
And it cost them. But, okay, do you think Green Bay would beat Dallas in a 7-game series? You know what I mean? I don't think so. I don't. Would it be a great series? Yes. But you know that Dallas would not start off as bad as they did for 4 games out of 7.
Yeah, I agree. But they didn't change the rules on Dallas. They've known this is a 1-game series.
I agree, but I just don't see how we can classify that as a failure.
Well, I think we're going to have to end this one agreeing to disagree on this one.
All right, so next week we'll be... What are we on our picks, though, before we go? Are we tied
We're
now?
tied now because I gained 1 picking Pittsburgh and you picked Kansas
Now,
City.
did we pick the same?
No, I picked Green Bay.
Okay, so then that's going to be our tiebreaker.
Yeah, so the NFC Championship's going to decide who wins. Well, then we have the Super Bowl, so we'll see.
Potential.
Yeah, potential.
All right, we'll see what's up.